Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Megan. Welcome back to the wedding series. And I have with me Cailla Quinn, who is a florist, a wedding florist, and she is doing my friend Devin's wedding. Devin was the bride who I interviewed a couple weeks ago. And we talked about her experience, her amazing experience going forward and booking Cailla for her wedding. So I wanted to have Cailla on here and talk about all things floral designs for weddings and just what it's like being a florist in the wedding industry. So Cailla, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
So, of course. So tell me how you found yourself in this industry.
Yeah, interesting question. So I could go back a million careers, but I'll just start with before I became a floral designer, I actually was a gardener and landscaper for a local company. So I did that for a few seasons where I got to manage people's estates, worked a lot with perennial gardens, did a
Awesome.
lot of foundation work. And I loved it. It was so great just to be outside all the time, to work with flowers and plants. But I do have a design background. And so after a certain point, I was thinking like, wow, I still want to work with the natural worlds. I want to use flowers and other, greenery and plants as like my medium, but I really want to get more into design. And so that's when I kind of transitioned to becoming a floral designer.
Awesome. So cool.
Yeah. And the way that that kind of happened actually is an interesting story. So I was working, as a gardener, I was working a lot of freelance jobs on top of doing it full time. And I met this woman, Julie, who's another wedding florist. She owns Bittersweet Gardens,
Okay.
um, Kingston. And Julie's great because she's a florist,
Mhm.
also a flower farmer, and then she was also doing gardening on the side. So we originally met because she had some gardening and container accounts in the city,
Okay.
and she asked me to help her on a few jobs. I took over some of her jobs, and then we just kind of stayed in touch. And then when the pandemic hit, she posted something like basically, oh my God, all my weddings got canceled, and I have all these flowers coming up in my greenhouse, and I can't pay anyone to help me because like I don't have any income now. And so I just had this idea, and this is kind of the time when I wanted to get in design, where I reached out to her and said, if I come down and help you garden for free, will you compensate me in buckets of flowers and just some design knowledge? And so we did that for 7 months, working outside together. And she took me under her wing and taught me a lot about floral design. And then once weddings started picking up, she asked me to help her on some weddings. So that was kind of the real intro. So thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Shout out. So cool though, because I feel like in this day and age, maybe just in these, I listen to like all these podcasts, like business podcasts, photography specific podcasts, and so many people are like, know what you're worth, charge what you're worth, all this stuff. And I did a ton of free shoots early on, when I first launched my business, because that's how you learn and that's how you get business, get your portfolio going. And so working for free like that is so invaluable in my opinion. And I think it's just awesome that you took advantage of that because it's a lot of people don't do that these days. But
Yeah. Yeah, I really agree. And I'm a big also like proponent for, sometimes you do things and you're not going to get compensated, but it's more about the experience, right? And the things that you learn and also about the people that you meet. That's huge. And so I think, of course, right, we all have bills to pay, but I think if there's an opportunity that comes your way, maybe it can't pay, what you like or can't pay at all, I think it is still worth it to really think about, okay, but can it compensate me in other ways, right? Is it
right.
going to allow me to meet people that are going to be really important, really, have a lot to share? Or is the experience alone just going to like really, put a lot of tools in my tool belt?
Totally. I completely agree. So your business is called Ephemerus.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I'm obsessed with the name. I think it's so beautiful. How did you come up with that name? And does that have any significance to you?
Yeah, well, I think people recognize it. It comes from the word ephemeral, which means like transient, fleeting, which flowers are just that, right? Flowers are very ephemeral. And I've loved that word so much, and I feel like it describes my design style so much. But there was something about it, like I wanted it to feel a lot more powerful. I wanted to feel a lot more like grounded or feminine. And so I had pages and pages of brainstorm of just names that I wanted, for my business. And, I'm going through all these names that I've just compiled, I want to say like over the course of a year. And my mom, who's also an artist, and her and I work closely on sculpture work, she was like, it might be worth looking at some things in their Latin root. And we were actually in the midst of a project that we were going to call Feminist. We were doing we were collaborating on a sculpture piece at a local park. And so I started to just look up words, kind of more with like a Latin root, and I came across Ephemerus. And I just loved it, and it just felt like the right fit.
I think you nailed it. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful, and it's almost like an onomatopoeia to me. Like I hear it and it like sounds like, and I look at your Instagram and like see your designs and it just like
Yeah.
ephemera is your design. I think you nailed it. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So in that light, describe like your floral style to me. Like what are your designs? Where do you get inspiration from? I see behind you. I don't know if you have like mood boards behind you or
I am always
love it.
pulled from different sources of inspiration. So my work is definitely rooted in my background in gardening and landscaping, and kind of, watching how flowers naturally grow and how plants look together, in a space. And for me, it's always important that the flowers can kind of stand on their own and speak on their own. So they're not, crammed into a design. There's a lot of airiness. I love negative space. I don't feel the need to have everything kind of look the same or be polka dotted. Like I love my designs to really look like we literally pulled a bunch of flowers out of the garden and put them in your compote on your table or in a, statement piece for a bar. And I love texture, and I love, contrast, and I love things that are moody. And so, yeah, I'm always kind of, pulling inspiration from not only just gardens in the plant world, but, from old world paintings or ceramics or, stained glass and things like that. So I'm always just like posting things that catch my eye for upcoming projects.
This is like another reason why I love doing these interviews is because like that's so cool and like that's so inspirational to me to like find different inspiration for my photography and just like you saying stained glass. I'm like, that's so I would never like think that I would pull inspiration for florals from saying like I just think that's beautiful. Love that. So you've been in this is your second year in business with Ephemerius, is that right?
Yeah, I'm entering my second season.
Awesome. Awesome. How do you find most of your clients?
It's a good question. I,
I guess
I
maybe how do they find you is the better question.
yeah, you know, I've really been lucky with word of mouth. I've had a lot of clients come to me who, either their friend got married and used me as their florist, or, um, they just saw my work online and we know each other through other people. I honestly have not put a lot of money or time into like more traditional marketing or advertising. Doesn't mean I won't in the future, but I definitely for my first year just kind of wanted to see. I didn't have any expectations, right, for my first year. I just wanted to see how things organically unfolded. Um, and so with that and kind of entering my second year is I find that a lot of my couples and a lot of my, corporate clients and restaurant clients is actually more word of mouth of like, oh, I saw your arrangement at this restaurant and they gave me your card. And, I would love to talk to you about like our holiday party. Or I have someone that I used to work with, she's a wedding planner, used to work with her. She lives in New York. She's not even Boston based. And she was like, oh, my sister's getting married and I think she would love your floral. So she put us in touch. So I've been really fortunate with that. But yeah, I would say I think people just finally find me mostly through Instagram, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, which, I think every business owner can agree that sometimes it's challenging to keep up with social media, but I do feel lucky that, my work, my industry is so visually driven and we get to work with such beautiful materials, right? So it definitely makes my job a lot like easier to create content for social media because I just get access to the most beautiful flowers.
For sure. And yeah, I totally agree that word of mouth is like still king, even though I mean there's so much emphasis on making sure that you do your social media is tight and that your website's tight and all stuff, which is important. But word of
Yeah.
mouth is still just so crucial.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's also like for me, it's really important that I have really great connections with the people I work with. It's not just about business, it's not just about an exchange of goods for money. Like I really love getting to know, some of my brides, and I really love, grabbing a drink with them and catching up. And even after the weddings, like knowing, how are you doing? And, I just actually I did a couple's wedding 2 years ago before I was even officially a business. And I just met their baby for the first time. We went out to lunch and it was just really
Aw.
nice. So I love that too, because the people I work with mean something to me, they're part of my life and I was a part of their life, and so yeah, I care a lot about personal connection with my clients.
So cool. I'm
I hate
sure.
to use client because it kind of makes it feel a little bit cold and transactional, but I guess I just care, and I want to always stay in touch with the people that I get to design for.
Right. And I'm sure if you know them, like the better you know them, the better you can design what you think they want for their wedding, more so than just them saying, describing what florals they
Yeah,
want, like actually getting to know their personality can like really help you figure out what would work for them. I would
yeah,
imagine.
totally.
Okay. So if a couple finds you, they're like, okay, yes, we want to book you for our wedding, or we want to talk to you about it. Walk me through what that looks like.
Sure. So I can only speak for myself, right? Because I
Yeah.
think every I'd have a slightly different process for this, but I usually have, someone reach out to me and say, I'm really interested in your florals. And I usually ask, up front, what is it that you want, right? Like a list of deliverables, right? Deliverables could be, I know I want a bridal bouquet, 8 bridesmaid bouquets, I need 15 centerpieces, I want, a traditional arbor. So I just try and get a sense of kind of the scope of what they're looking for. And then I always ask for inspiration photos. This can be from Pinterest. It can be from something else too. It doesn't have to be just from Pinterest. But what that does is that helps me understand what they're drawn to in terms of design style,
Sure.
color, the feeling. And it's especially helpful for people who are like, I don't know how to talk about florals, which that's okay. I would never expect anyone who doesn't work in this
Okay.
like automatically know how to talk about florals. Um, so that's why I find that just like the visual inspiration is helpful in terms of like people communicating what they like. And it's just as important for me to know what you don't like,
Sure.
right? I want to know if you're like, I actually don't like the color yellow, or I really don't like daisies. Like, please don't use daisies in my wedding. Like, that's just as important to me as knowing like my favorite flower is a dahlia, and I would love if you could use dahlias in my wedding.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so I usually start there, get that information, then we'll schedule a call, and I'll get on the phone and we'll just talk. We'll just talk about, one of the questions I always kind of start the conversation with is, how do you want to feel on your wedding day, and how do you want your guests to feel on your wedding day? What's important to you, what's not important to you, and then we kind of talk through, everything they're thinking, kind of, logistics of venue, and then, we'll talk about budget. Which I have one thing I want to say is, I know that for a lot of people it's really uncomfortable talking about money. I get it, you know. But it's super important that we can talk about money because it's an important part of it. And flowers are really expensive. Like, material cost is really expensive. But I always want people to feel like, A, they can talk to me about their budget if they have one. And B, once I give them a draft proposal, I want to know like, okay, this works for us and we can actually like spend more, or this is a great place to kind of stay, or like, is there any way we can like take it down a little bit? It's really important. I never want people to feel like my proposal is like a done deal.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the next part is, after I do the phone call, I write up a draft proposal for you. And so this will, have an inspiration board, some images that you've sent me. I'll also pull some images that I think are relevant. And then I break down pricing for you so you can kind of see everything. I like
Awesome.
to be transparent about that. And then, yeah, I send it to you. I tell you have some time. I never want people to feel rushed. I also understand that with any vendor, you're kind of looking to see what different people offer. Yeah. And then if you decide you want to book with me, then we'll kind of go from there in terms of the deposit and contract signature. We just stay in touch, and some people book me way in advance. Other people, maybe it's just a few months before their wedding. It just depends, but we always stay in touch. And then we'll really kind of connect, the couple weeks leading up for any other like finer detail or anything else I need to know. But then I just show up with my team and set up, and you don't have to worry about anything. And then we come back and do strike. So
And so what would be, I know you said people kind of do this on their own timeline, but for you, ideally, what's your ideal timeline that someone would reach out? Should it be 6 months before their wedding, 8 months, a year? Like, what was best for you?
I think, I want to say for me, I think the 7 month to 12 month period is ideal. Yeah. It's hard because I do think if you do it too far in advance, right? Like let's say like 2 years out or even a year and a half out. For me personally, that's a little bit too early. I just feel like a lot can change.
Sure.
You don't even have an idea of what your guest count's going to look like, your venue, there's a lot of things that can kind of change, and it's far out too. And I also have to be conscious of, my material cost changes. It fluctuates kind of based on me and kind of based on like, it's basically like the floral Wall Street, of how much a stem is. So I don't really prefer to book out weddings that far in advance, but I'd say, and certainly like last minute, right, creates some other challenges, but I would say probably about like 7 to 12 months ahead of your wedding date.
Perfect. That's good to know. I know there's like talking to people these days, some people are booking like, I just talked to a makeup artist. He just got an inquiry about a 2026 wedding. And I was like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Very far in advance. And I understand people want to, I mean, that's like very forward thinking of couples, and I applaud them for that. But that's like you said, so many things can change, and it's really hard to book that far out because XYZ variables can change in 18 months, 2 years. So that's so funny.
Good for her though. Great. And tell her I said
I know. I was like, wow, that's the goal for me,
Yeah.
So what is like your dream project? Like if someone came, or we'll keep it to weddings. So like, what is like, if someone came to you with this proposal for their wedding, you'd be like, yes, this is it.
I would say their wedding would be either private residence or like an old estate where there's like really beautiful old English gardens.
Okay.
And their aesthetic is they want very like ephemeral, ethereal, really beautiful like blush palette with some darker tones. And we use a lot of produce on the tables too, because I love styling with produce.
Love it. I feel like you literally just spoke Devin's language.
Yeah.
Like that
That's
was,
why I do her wedding. So
yeah. When did I bring up Devin in the beginning of this podcast? I did, yes. She, when I was interviewing her, she was like, I love English gardens. I'm growing my own produce plants to hopefully use for, and I'm like, you just described everything. That's amazing.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, when she emails me and was like, I want to bring Greece to New England, I was like, yes, girl, like sign.
Yeah.
I love old world, paintings. I love old world. I have a little bit of an addiction issue with old vessels that are getting exported from like Greece, Italy. I think I've purchased about like 5 gorgeous old vases for Devin's wedding because I just love kind of that old pottery look. So
you put up a story the other day. I saw that you were like, Devin, I'm thinking of you with this one. That was beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then do you have any projects that you're working on right now that you're just like, this has been so much fun or it's super inspiring to you?
Yeah, actually. So I haven't announced this yet. Devin might know because she's, her and I talk once in a while, but I actually got asked to participate in this year's Art in Bloom at the MFA. So that's going to be April.
So cool.
Yeah, and I actually went on the tour today with the other florists just to look at our locations and to talk about logistics. And, the museum, for conservation reasons, has a few rules surrounding everything. But yeah, so basically the end of April, it's one weekend. It's April like 26th or the 28th. They do annual Art in Bloom, and I want to say that it's like their 38th year or something like that. I didn't realize they've been doing it that long.
Yeah.
This will be my first time participating.
Awesome.
Basically get to create this massive floral installation that's going to be in one of the main locations of the museum. So I'm
Congrats,
really
that is so awesome.
a lot of what this is me just starting to brainstorm like, okay, what do I want to do for this, and like what do I want it to be inspired by, and what shape do I want it, so I'm just in like the brainstorm period right now, but it's been really fun to kind of play around.
That seems like a really big deal and a big honor. And then for that to come to you in your second year in business is like insane. That's
I feel, yeah.
wow.
And I'm an art kid too. Like I went to art college, so it's
Yeah.
also like I can't help it. Like I'm geeking out because,
Yeah.
like
As
that's
you should.
one of the dreams is that you're in a major museum.
Yeah.
And I for photo. So I think, when I was in school at Parsons, I was thinking like, oh, okay, maybe I'll be in a museum, for my photography. And then here I am. I've totally pivoted careers, but my to be at the museum regardless, but for floral design. So
Cool. Well, congrats. That's amazing.
yeah,
So
I'll
cool.
send out invites to everybody. So
Love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely want to come check it out. That's so cool. What advice do you have for any potential clients? I know clients is that like businessy word, but any couples who are looking to book you or a florist in general for their wedding, like do you have any tips for them or where they should even start?
yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice, whether you're looking for a florist for your wedding, or you're a restaurateur looking for a florist to do weekly flowers, is just look at floral design. Like
Mhm.
Google it, Pinterest it, save stuff you like.
Mhm.
I think it really helps to see different types of design for you to kind of feel, what am I drawn to, what am I not drawn to,
Sure.
and then from there, that's when you really, call on us, the professionals, to talk to you about like what's realistic for your budget. Here's a different way we could approach this if you're not really sure. It's really important for me that like I don't feel the need to be a gatekeeper about information. If anything, I want to share a lot of information with potential clients about, this is how this works, or this is how much this usually costs, or, you know, like for example, I had a client who wanted to have their wedding in a beautiful restaurant, but it's very dark. And so one of the things that I kind of brought to her attention was the color palette you want is stunning, but I also need you to keep in mind that the darker flowers, right, like the burgundy, the plum colors, they're going to kind of disappear a little bit.
Sure.
So not shouldn't use those, but maybe we'll use a little bit less and actually use some like brighter colors, or just, things that are a little bit more in like the blush or the ivory spectrum, because those are what actually are going to pop in a dimly lit restaurant.
Yeah.
Um, but I love talking to people about that stuff, and I think it's really important just to like ask a ton of questions to your vendors. Like it's no problem to us. I love sharing that information. Even if you don't book me as your florist in the end, like I'm happy to always kind of talk to you about how we work and how things happen, and
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Love
So
that. All right. To close it out, I gotta ask you, what is your favorite flower?
that
Right
is such
now,
a
changes all.
one. Um, such a hard one. I love so many. But I really love foxglove. So foxglove, for me,
I'm gonna
it's just
insert a picture of foxglove because for
yeah, yeah.
all like people who don't know
Fox,
any, yes.
um, I just they're quirky, they're a little bit weird. They almost for me kind of seem like they're otherworldly, like they're not even from this planet.
Cool.
And I love using them for height and for texture. And I think they're really special when they're incorporated into bridal bouquets and then also centerpieces.
Cool.
Um, they come in different colors, but I really love the more like blush, light pink, white, um, tones where they'll usually have like a little bit of like a purple speckle inside each petal. So
Awesome. Okay, I'm immediately gonna Google foxglove after this call.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank
yeah,
you so much. tell us where we can find you on social and all that stuff.
Yeah, so my website is ephemeris.com, and easy, my Instagram is just at Ephemerius.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so, so much for doing this with me. This was so fun.
Thank you.
And I will be meeting you, if not beforehand, at Devin's wedding in September. So very excited about that. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, good luck. Good luck at the MFA event. That's amazing.
Thank you. I'll send you an invite for sure.
Please.
And if I with anything with the photo world, like please let me know. Of
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Awesome.
course. Of
Thank you.
course. All right. Bye.